Hello everybody, my name is Ruby and today we're going to be talking about autofilter. Alright, so let's get into it. Autofilter is a great way to add some crazy movement to your sounds. For this example, I created this Neurobass using a bunch of autofilters. At its core, if we turn all of these off, turn that one, we get then turning on this bank of filters right here, which I will go over in just a second, we get tons of movement. And then we can play with this one over here, which is adding some saturation by using an analog modeled filter. And just taming a little bit of the high end. And then this last one we're using to add that stabby, like rolling bass line type thing. And you can see we're modulating the cutoff, or automating the cutoff, sorry, right there. So let's dive into the Neurobass part of it for a second. This crazy business. So I think the one flaw that autofilter has is it doesn't really show you on the graph what the filter is doing, which might get a little bit confusing for beginners. That's why I recommend using a spectrogram or something if you want to visualize what's happening. I have mini meters up here. You can see the crazy movement in the high frequencies there. Or Ableton actually has its own spectrum analyzer. It's a little bit different, but if we pull it here at the end of these filters, you can see the movement there. And here, if I drag them out of the filter group and turn it off, where'd it go? You can see in there how much movement they add. So let's talk about how to use it. So here in this neuro group, whatever, I have a bunch of autofilters set to notch filters, which are going to cut from the frequency spectrum, and that being pushed into a saturation is what gives you that crunchy Neurobass sound and like super vowel-y sounding, I guess. So if we collapse all these and then start over, get a fresh instance. This is what it's like by default. It's mostly just a low pass. The reason it's not fully low passing is because I'm layering this bass with a noise layer. That's not going through the neuro filter bank, but this is going to be low passing the main bass. There are these different filter modes that we can pick from. I forget exactly which one's which. You'll have to consult the Ableton manual, but I know they are based off of real hardware filters for the most part. So you can see when you pick one of these, you get a drive knob. So that can also just be used as another creative distortion. However, there's these other filter types as well. Like that's a pretty gnarly sound right there. You can resample that, make some cool textures out of that. It's a band pass. right? And that's just by me dragging around and playing with the frequency and resonance, right? And so you can modulate these. You can use an LFO on random. That makes some fun generative type stuff. But built into autofilter is the reason it's called autofilter, is an LFO. So this, again, doesn't get visualized very well. But if you turn up the amount, if I just leave this like this, it's static. But if you turn up the amount, and you can kind of see up there in the spectrogram what that's doing. And this right here can be synced to your project tempo. So if we set this to, say, 1 beat or 1 bar, I forget. I want to say 1 whole note, sorry. And of course you can desync it, you can do it by hertz. And you can play with the phases. So there's all these filters and automations that you can play with. So for this thing to add the, like plucky synth texture to it, I am setting the LFO to a downward saw wave on 16th notes. And then as you can see, I'm just playing with the frequency cutoff to give it more movement, tension, arrangement stuff. So that's kind of using it in a Neurobass context. Here I have these kind of like stab things. And this is where autofilter can be helpful in a mixing scenario, is I'm having it tame the sounds because I'm distorting them a lot. They're very high frequency. You can see I use an OTT on the chain. But in this autofilter, if I turn it off, it's very loud and abrasive. So I'm putting a low pass and then I'm actually having it follow the envelope of the sound. So if I turn that back off, that's what it's like normally. And as you turn this up, it's going to follow the envelope of the incoming signal and map it to the frequency cutoff. So, and then this attack and release parameter here is not an envelope for the filter. It's an envelope for the envelope follower, which sounds a little bit confusing. But if you turn up the attack, you can hear it becomes less stabby. And then when you turn the release down, it gets kind of staticky because it's going to be following the envelope very, very, very tightly, which is going to create some weird shapes, which can sound very cool. And you can use that in another creative context. I'm going to put this back how I had it. So another way that I'm using it in that super fast kind of choppy movement feel is on the cymbals. Sorry, I know that's kind of loud, but here I'm actually modulating it very fast to try and make the cymbals sound more shaky, and like I think it just gives them more energy in the context. So if I turn it off, so on their own I think that kind of sounds like not very good, but in the context of the mix I'm going to play it without and then with. I think it just adds to that like tension and uncertain energy to the track that I think is really cool. So these are some creative applications I found in the beat I made using autofilter. If you guys have any other interesting techniques using this device, feel free to share them in the comments, and I will see you guys next time.